Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the May 16th, 2023 Post Falls City Council meeting. Shannon, when she gets back to her table, will note that council members are present with the exception of Councilors Thorson and Shover, both of whom are excused tonight. Under ceremonies, announcements, presentations, we do have a couple announcements. Time to vote. The polls close at 8 p.m. If you haven't already, please go vote. City Hall and city business offices will be closed Monday, May 29th in observance of Memorial Day. Police, fire, and rescue services for life-threatening or in-progress emergencies may be reached by calling 911. The police department will be open for walk-in emergencies, and for water department emergencies, please call 208-773-3517. Evergreen Cemetery will hold its annual Memorial Day ceremony on Monday, May 29th at 11 a.m. The City of Post Falls and American Legion Post 143 will pay tribute to our veterans with prayer, speeches, honor, and color guard, and the placement of individual flags upon each veteran's gravesite. And I do have a proclamation. National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Post Falls, Idaho. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are employees at all levels of government and the private sector, responsible for protecting, rebuilding, and improving our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and the children in the City of Post Falls to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works program in their respective communities. Now, therefore, I, Ronald G. Jacobson, Mayor of the City of Post Falls, Idaho, do hereby proclaim the week, May 21st through May 27th, 2023, as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join in recognizing the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. And we do have a Transportation Award, Category H Transportation Award for the intersection of Poleline Avenue and Cecil Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jay Hassel. I'm with JEB Engineers. I'm the area manager for the Coeur d'Alene and Spokane offices, and we have a little bit of celebration we want to show you today. So your Cecil Poleline project that we completed recently was submitted by JEB and with a partnership with the city to the American Council of Engineering Companies, and it received an award for the project. So what I would like to do today is just take you real briefly through what this was about, and this was in the transportation category. So you may have driven the intersection by now. It's got a nice new roundabout out there with a lot more pedestrian safety improvements. And prior to this project, we had a number of collisions, including injuries. And you can see that 29% of the collisions resulted in some injuries. What has happened since the project was completed is we no longer have, at least to this date, any injury accidents, and we only have one overall. And the reason this is really a celebration, it's not a celebration of JEB or anything, it's a celebration of increased public safety. As an engineer, I take a lot of pride in when I'm involved in projects that actually result in saving lives or reducing injury, because that's ultimately, from an infrastructure standpoint, the best thing we can do in my profession. So that's why we're here today, and I brought the award that we'll leave behind with the city. And Mr. Paulus will take that with him. So also acknowledging that the contractor, Tila Revilla, was instrumental in getting this project done. It was done in the time when, let's just say, supply chain issues were causing challenges. And we were able to work collectively through them and also other local agencies, and everybody came together to find the things we needed to put the project together. So thank you to staff and everybody who was involved in the project.
Thank you. Appreciate your assistance on the project. And Bill, Rob, thank you guys for the work you've done. And anytime we can take a intersection and make it safer, I think that's for the betterment of the entire community. So again, thanks for your efforts. Appreciate it.
So, yeah, go ahead. It would be really nice, Jay, if we could get a picture of you and Rob together. I mean, do you have, I can take it if, do you have your camera, Shannon, if you want to take a picture of the two of them?
And while
Stephanie's not here tonight, so.
Sure. While they're getting ready to take a picture, I know we have one student. We have more students here just observing tonight?
We have city council members back, or
Student council.
School council from which school? Post Falls? Welcome. Are you in government classes out there? Senior year, okay. You're lucky, because I'm going to be speaking for about 8 hours out there for the next week, so you won't have to listen to me. Thank you for attending. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, staff is requesting that the council request an amendment to the agenda to remove the public hearing for impact fees from tonight's agenda. And that is under item 3A, impact fee public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have lots of movements in seconds, so clerk, please take the roll.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
That will come back to a future agenda.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflicts, ex parte communications, or site visits? Seeing none, would you please present the consent calendar?
Item A is minutes from the May 2nd, 2023 City Council meeting. Item B is payables April 25th through May 8th, 2023. Item C is the 2023 intergovernmental agreement with Rathdrum for prosecution services. Item D is agreement with Kootenai Electric Cooperative Incorporated for electrical infrastructure easement and road rights of way. Item E is Fanning addition to Allen Park Business Center minor subdivision plat application. And item F is pretreatment sampling agreement with Burley Products Incorporated. Item G is sanitary sewer and utility easement for Prairie Crossing. Item H is water division purchase of mini excavator. Item I is employment contract with Janet Best as Human Resources Director.
Any questions on consent calendar? Entertain a motion.
I'd move for approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Walker,
You know, I keep expecting the fifth vote, but there's only 4 counselors up there. I'm number 5. Thank you. Motion passes. And at this point, prior to the next item, which is going to be the oath of office for our new human resource director, I would like to ask council for a motion to appoint Janet Best as human resource director.
So moved. I thought that was the one you were supposed to go for.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes. And Janet, that wasn't hesitation. They just didn't know who was going to make the motion.
I stole his thunder earlier accidentally. So.
So with that, would you please come forward, and Shannon's going to issue the oath of office for you.
Here, Jan. Do you, Janet Best, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Idaho, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of Human Resource Director of the City of Post Falls according best to your ability? I do. Sorry, this is not right.
Congratulations to Janet and Teresa. Thank you for all your years of service to the City of Post Falls, and believe me, retirement is great. You're going to love it. Next item is public hearings, and as was mentioned earlier, the impact fee public hearing was canceled. followed by unfinished business, returning ordinances and resolutions. And tonight we have one action item, a recycled water reuse permit application for the City of Post Falls Community Forest.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to tilt this just so I don't have to lean. I'm here to talk to you tonight about the Post Falls Community Forest. And it's been a while since I last spoke to you about this project, and I know some of you are new, so you haven't heard about it at all.
Would you give your name for the record, just so
Oh,
everyone-
Alyssa Giersdorf.
Thanks, Alyssa.
It is on my notes here, but I skipped that part because I already knew that part.
You knew that
so.
part.
Environmental Specialist, Utilities Division. So Post Falls Community Forest, I'm going to give you a brief update on some of the history and the technical components that have been recently completed, and the technical work that has just been completed has allowed us to prepare the, as the title of the slide indicates, the recycled water reuse permit application. And I'll be asking for the council's authorization to have the mayor sign that. And then we'll kind of end with some next steps. So we're gonna move along here. So kind of for some orientation, the Post Falls Community Forest Reuse Site sits on the south side of the Spokane River. It's about a half-mile south of the water reclamation facility. And the history is we purchased this property with the goal of using it for a reuse site, so land applying wastewater, treated effluent. In 2018, we completed the development and permitting study of the site. And then in 2020, one of the good things that happened was phase 1 of the hydrogeologic investigation was completed. So those 3 bullet points have been brought to council before. And then moving to number 4, in November 2021, that was the last time I spoke to you guys. That was when we started phase 2. And those have, the items in that phase have just been completed last month. So to dive into the phase 2 items just a little bit more, and don't worry, I won't get too technical, unless you want me to. I mean,
No, thank you.
yeah, just as a joke. So I do want to hit on a couple points because they are important, because these components that are listed up here are all required for that permit application. So that first one is the silvicultural plan, and that's basically the forest management guide. So the plan looks at the species of trees that are there on the site, the vegetation, and we kind of go through and like, do we need to thin the trees? How do we prevent disease? It's basically a plan for how to set the site up for success so that it can uptake the nutrients and water to the best of its ability. From that silvicultural plan, the preliminary hydraulic management units were developed, and that is where are we going to apply the water? So, okay, here's a cliff of rocks. We're not going to apply water there. It won't be successful. Here's a nice open field. We'll put water there. And this is just kind of a generic plan for now, because when we get into the design phase, more details will come out of it. And then moving to number 3, the hydrogeologic investigations were finalized. We took it a step further and we did some geophysical work. So we looked at where the basement of the rock is, what is the geology there, and that allowed us to better site the monitoring wells, because we had to put in some monitoring wells to look at the groundwater quality. And from that, monitoring well specs and plans were developed. And so those 3 things are included in that technical report. The technical report accompanies the reuse permit application. And so all that together gets submitted to DEQ for their review. And then to bring it full circle, because I love making lists and even love more checking them off. So we have this list of what we're working through. So we've completed the investigation and entitlement process. We've completed the city entitlement process. We've completed the boundary and topographic survey. We've completed the hydrogeologic investigation and the silvicultural plan. And I remember last time I was here, the mayor asked the question as to, when are we getting to that permit application? Is this gonna get us there? And yes, we are at that point. The permit application, the technical report, is completed and ready for submittal, which brings me to my ask tonight that you authorize the mayor to sign that, and then we submit it to DEQ for their review. And that kind of moves us along to further preparing the site for water application. And with that, some pretty pictures, any water application. And with that, some pretty pictures. Any questions?
Alyssa, any idea how long it takes once, if the permits, application is submitted?
You know, I knew you were going to ask that. It's a good question. It kind of just depends on how fast they get through their review, and they do take a while. I would say maybe 6 months at the most, maybe longer. I don't think there's not a set time frame for when they get back to us.
But with everything else we have going on, wastewater plant and that, we're still in pretty good shape prior to this. Good. Think any other questions for Alyssa?
I would move to approve the recycled water reuse permit application for the Post Falls Community Forest.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is new business. Tonight we have two. The first is the approval to purchase 4 new Volvo L70H loaders with gated snowplows.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm John Beecham, Public Works Director. I am not Ross Junkin, the Public Works Maintenance Manager. Ross wasn't able to be here tonight, so I am pitch hitting, and this is his presentation. If there's slides that I'm not familiar with, I will make the best of that. So, previously, back in February, Ross and I presented on sort of future snow operations options for the city. And out of that, we were looking at what we could do with the existing fleet of loaders we have. We could went through some different options for acquisition. Understood that if we could afford it, purchasing was preferred as opposed to leasing options where we're not paying financing costs. And presented a recommendation that we increase our loader fleet from 7 loaders citywide to 8. That I'll talk a little bit more as we go into that, but that targets a 10-year life cycle too for those loaders. So we'd be, right now we're on a 5-year lease for the loaders, so we'd be shifting to owning loaders for 10 years for their life cycles. So we went out to see what we could find on the market and found 3 different local vendors who could provide similar loaders with the same snowplows and gates we have now, or similar gates. They're actually an upgraded model that lasts a little better. In a nutshell, the Volvo loader is the lowest cost for us. Also comes with a pretty reasonably priced maintenance plan and a warranty. So that was a good selling point for us, and glad we did the due diligence there. You can see that close to 10% difference from high to low. So with that, we're recommending we make the equipment changes that we talked about at that workshop. That would be to increase the total fleet from 7 to 8 loaders, and that the 8 loaders that Streets operates would all have gated plows. We're separately looking to update the plows on the existing loaders we have, and I'll talk about that in a second. But in order to do this, we would buy out the lease on the existing 4 cat loaders we have. Those are 5 years old now. We've been the only operators of them, so we're pretty comfortable with those. And the buyout price is substantially cheaper than if we were to go out on the open market today. To supplement those loaders, we're recommending we buy these 4 new loaders and then surplus 3 existing city loaders. As you can see, none of those are anything close to new. The newest one is a 2005. So they've served us well, and hopefully they'll serve somebody else well for a great auction price. Continuing that recommendation, we're requesting the permission to replace those loaders and buy the 4 new ones today. Here's the specifics of that, what that is. The loaders, they'll all be outfitted a little bit differently. They're all going to have a bucket and a snowplow with a gate. We are looking at getting a couple of other attachments, like a set of forks. So that would be just to move materials around at the site. The purchasing for this is through cooperative purchasing agreement that the city participates in. But as you saw, we also did get 3 quotes through local vendors. So we sort of double checking that we were getting a good price. And the funding source would be through dedicated replacement funds. So this would be a reserve account that the city set aside to replace vehicles that are already in our fleet. It's a little bit out of the ordinary to replace 3 with 4, but that makes some sense given where we're going with this. The effects of this in terms of mostly snow operation is this will let us continue with the existing level of snow operations, or I would say the average level of snow operations for the last few years. With growth and annexation, we have more roads to maintain. So increasing our loader fleet lets us keep our service level the same. We're not advertising that we're going to be able to do the whole city in a faster time frame. That said, we do think we'll be able to get to those priority 1 and 2 roads a little more quickly with having more loaders with gates that are able to do that work, and could allow us to get into residential neighborhoods a little bit sooner. It also provides something we don't have right now, which is backup and flexibility when breakdowns occur, because the only thing that's for sure with mechanical equipment is it will eventually break down. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer
John,
them.
quick question. So it's $1.4 million. Is that for the 4 new ones, or where do the funds come from to buy out the existing?
That's a great question. We are planning to use that same replacement funds account to buy out those existing loaders. They are $121,000 each to buy out that lease. So about half of what we're paying for the new ones.
Okay.
But that is not included in the $1 million
Okay.
number.
Any questions?
I'd move to approve the purchase of 4 new Volvo L70H loaders with gated snowplows.
Second.
Motion second for the discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Next up is federal grant funding application for the forest management of city natural areas. Preston.
Mayor Jacobson, members of council, thank you for your time this evening. My name is Preston Hill. I'm the urban forester for the city of Post Falls, and I'm here to ask for your approval to develop and submit an application for a federal grant opportunity that has become available. So this grant funding is a result of the Inflation Reduction Act, and it constitutes about $1 billion nationwide over the next 5 years, specifically for urban forestry, urban and community forestry projects throughout the nation. So this is to plant trees in urban areas and to take care of urban natural areas. The entities that are eligible are state and local governments, community tribes, or community groups, tribes, and others. So being a municipality, we are eligible for this funding. There is a broad range of project types, including tree planting and improvements to natural areas, as I mentioned. What you're looking at on the right there is a map that was created or provided as a tool for eligibility. And so the shaded areas in that map of Post Falls show what the federal government suggests are economically and environmentally disadvantaged areas in the city of Post Falls. And the reason that's important is because if your project is completely within those shaded areas, then they will waive the dollar for dollar matching requirement for those grant funds. So what we'd like to do with this funding, if we're allowed to pursue it, is to focus in on improvement of some of our largest natural areas that we manage in the city. Post Falls Community Forest, Black Bay Park, and Kiwanis Park. In urban forestry, we manage the trees on our own sites. We have 100% management responsibility over those, and we partner with adjacent property owners on the management of trees in public rights-of-way, that is city street trees. And then we also manage about 650 acres of natural area with over 12 miles of natural surface trails and about 2.5 miles of Spokane River shoreline. Unfortunately, the management of those areas ends up being much more reactive than it is proactive. So that's something we don't necessarily get to focus on as much as the more developed responsibilities. So if we get this funding, we'd like to develop forest management plans for Kiwanis Park and Black Bay Park. Also complete some thinning operations, actual boots on the ground work in those natural areas for thinning, and to hopefully set us up a little better for bark beetle problems that we've experienced over the past several years, and other tasks like that. There's some trail improvements that could be done with specific regard to getting first responders to aid lost hikers. So those are the types of projects that we would work with, and the funding amount that we would like to go after is about $250,000. We have a skeleton of an application put together now, but that looks like it'll be about the dollar amount for the projects that we want to do. So with that, I'm open to any questions that you might have.
I like the matching part.
Yep.
0, that's great. Any comments,
Yeah.
questions? Seeing none?
I would move to approve the federal grant funding application for forest management in city natural areas.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Walker.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Ziegler.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Preston. Next item on the agenda tonight is citizens' issues, and this section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding a city-related issue that is not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none. Administrative staff reports. Tonight we're going to have a parks projects update. Robbie Quinn.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Robbie Quinn, Parks Planner. And I'm here this evening to kind of go over and highlight some of our past projects, kind of future or current / future projects that we're working on. And so I'll kind of look back at generally the last 3 or 4 year timeline, and then again, current projects. So the first one back in 2020 was an upgrade to an existing park. So Beck Park, we ended up building a shelter and splash pad, and these were both kind of focused. You can see barely right here the slide. So these are focused around the existing playground. So it kind of generally focuses people in a more central location where they have amenities right next to each other and next to the parking lot and the restroom. So easier for families with kids and that sort of thing. At the same time, same year, we put in another shelter at Park in the Meadows. So this one was a little more ornate of a shelter, and again, this is located next to the playground and shelter for similar reasons. Additionally, we worked on the Black Bay Depot, which was finished in 2020. Obviously started before that, but this was our little rec center on 3rd Street. And so it kind of a couple multi-use rooms. And then in the back of the building there's 2 micro synthetic turf fields, as well as a playground and a pergola. So a lot of great rec opportunities at this site. In 2021, we did some upgrades to Falls Park, again, a existing park that we upgraded. So we looked at repairing the bridge. So we did all new decking on the bridge, all new railing. We relocated one of the shelters and kind of rebuilt it where it was settling. Upgraded the playground, so it was mostly all out of compliance at the time. So we installed all new equipment that meet current safety standards. And then Vista ended up redoing the entrance where there was also a lot of settling. Hildy Kellogg, another project, 2020. Got those a little mixed up, but anyway, this was a improvement to an existing site as well. There used to be a gravel parking lot, so we ended up replacing the gravel parking lot, new asphalt, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and we relocated the existing playground over by the shelters, which is kind of back in this area over here. ended up adding drinking fountain, bike racks, and new sidewalks. And then most recently, within the last month, our guys ended up building this porta potty kind of cover to help screen that from the road, a little more attractive. And then kind of one of our most recent projects, the Post Falls Landing. So this site was started much sooner than 2018, but the master plan was actually developed and approved in 2018. And then obviously 2021, we had the construction and the dedication of that site. So that consisted of amphitheater, plaza space, kind of a passive site with views looking over the Spokane River and the dam. And now moving to some of our current projects. So Tullamore Sports Complex, again, started many years ago, but the master plan developed in 2020, where we ended up designing kind of a youth baseball facility, 5 fields, as well as 4 multi-purpose soccer type fields. So then 2021, we had the first design developed and then went out to bid for the mass grading. So as you recall, that used to be a gravel pit, so we ended up leveling the site, filling it, compacting it, everything, got the subgrade ready for construction, essentially a phase 1. It's basically shovel ready at this point. Then last year, we did the road frontage on Cecil on the same site, so you can see kind of the transition between new and existing. So we finished this 1 lane, added a bike lane, parking, swale with street trees, street lights, and a multi-use path. So that completes our road frontage on 3 sides of this site. The only one left is Prairie. And then most recently, about a month ago, I came before you requesting the irrigation well. So as you can see, that has also been completed. That was drilled about 2 weeks ago, I believe. So we're just waiting for some of those test results before they design the filter for that system. So on this site, essentially that's kind of where we're at now. Obviously, phase 1 construction would be the next step, which we don't necessarily have a date set in time for that. Right now, it kind of depends on funding for other projects as well. So then Black Bay, one of our other current projects. So this one also started 2019 with the master plan, working with Civitas. And then once that was approved, we went into phase 1 design, which was completed in 2020, 2021. And then after that, we ended up going after a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, which we were awarded by the state. So it's kind of a 2-step process. So we were awarded by the state for about $750,000. So then the state has to send it to the federal government for their review and approval. And that's where it kind of got hung up. From what our understanding, there's a lot of turnover with staffing and things were just really delayed. So we ended up kind of missing out on that grant timeline. It's a kind of a 2-year cycle. So we ended up missing out on 2021. So we reapplied again this year. Again, we were awarded by the state for the same amount. So now it's back to the federal government again, and we're currently waiting on that. Hopefully looking to hear back from them in about a month timeline is what we're thinking. And with our goal of finally being able to put this out to construction for kind of this fall/winter, early spring of next year for the phase 1. And then another one that's been going on for some time, the Montrose. So back in 2019, we kind of looked at the concept design for that site, which was shown here, not really what it ended up being now, but just kind of at that time. And then obviously about a month ago, you approved the purchase of 6.6 acres for this site. And so what that's allowing us is to finally go into kind of phase 1 design, which will hopefully start here pretty soon. And then we'd like to get construction going this fall for at least a couple of these ball fields. And yeah, this fall. And then lastly, dog park. I know this one's kind of been on our radar for many years as well. Worked through a couple different sites that kind of fell through, but again, last month ended up purchasing some land at Corbin, hoping to start that design sometime this year, and then ultimately go to construction for that next year. So, again, I kind of just want to highlight some of our projects and just show, you know, there's a lot that goes into them as far as design, prep, and funding sources and everything, and it can take, you know, 3 or 4 years before we actually get going on things, but we're always working on them in the background, even if you don't see it, so. Are there any questions?
Good information, Robbie. Any questions, Robbie? Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is mayor and council comments, and I've nothing to say other than if you haven't voted again, please go out and vote. Exercise your right. Council comments? Seeing none. Do we need an executive session?
We do not.
Therefore, the next motion is,
Adjourn.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.